Combine Ruby on Rails, cloud infrastructure, and a huge open source developer base, and you get San Francisco-based Engine Yard, providing Ruby platform services for thousands of businesses. I'm here in San Francisco to speak with one Dr. Nic Williams about why building on Rails is so fun, how development is changing, and how you might just get the best job ever. Well, thank you so much for having us here at your offices today.
Oh, thank you very much for coming along.
So describe your role here and what Engine Yard is all about.
I just want to put this answer in this question. If I could just take your camera over here, you'll see there are no developers. They are all at the pub doing a retro.
What's a retro?
Once a week we go through what we achieved, what we want to do better, so that you're constantly iterating and improving.
You need beers for that.
Beers help.
So what exactly is Engine Yard? What service do you provide for people?
Our customers are web businesses, mobile businesses. We provide every service. From becoming a Rails developer to having your Rails application in production with customers, deployment training, and all the monitoring lifecycle experiences for that app.
So for specifically web applications?
Specifically web applications and specifically the Ruby on Rails variant. Web applications have lots of moving parts, from the web app to background processing, and the applications themselves grow and collapse, so we need to maintain them, keep them up.
Now, why is Rails better than any other kind of Ruby implementation?
Oh, that's an excellent question. If you've ever worked on lots of projects, you know that some of them have success with customers and some of them don't go anywhere. You want to find that out as quickly as possible. You want to be able to explore an idea, get it to the customer, and play with it, iterate over it as quickly as possible. And Rails just turns out to make that rapid and pleasant. In Java and the other frameworks, you start a new project, there's a whole bunch of wiring up. Oh, it can take you half a day to get ready. But with Rails, you can have a new web app running in minutes.
How does open source tie into not only what you do here at Engine Yard, but also just Ruby on Rails in general?
Because our industry with Rails and Engine Yard's business is built so heavily on open source, we invest in it. There's a strong idea within the people that do Rails, which is to take some of the code you just wrote and put it back out and say, I've solved this problem. It was annoying, and if I can stop other people having to waste time on it, I've sort of saved lives. Small fractions of lives, depending on how many people use it. It's a bit like being a garage mechanic, where you leave your garage open and people just walk past and go, what are you building? Come and have a look.
Being able to do open source work means that there's a lot more eyes looking at your code. It's a little nerving. If you do something wrong, there's all these people that are gonna ask you, why'd you do it that way? It helps you though as a programmer in the long run to feel comfortable to put your code out there for the rest of the world to see.
The ability to think and talk about what you're doing is as important as the coding process. If all you do is solve problems in your head, then no one knows why you did something.
There's no documentation for what's going on in your head.
If you don't write it down, if you can't verbalize it, a piece of code that you wrote that you come back to in 6 months' time was written by a stranger. Because you're not going to remember what your thinking process was. So even documentation is important, even if it's yours.
When you're looking to hire someone, then something that you would probably immediately do is check to see what kind of open source projects they've worked on in the past.
That's an interesting question, because it is becoming very, very important, especially here. There is not one of the engineering positions you can get without having been able to say, this is me from an open source perspective. A resume or a CV is not a very exciting way to differentiate yourself, and open source allows us to have an insight into who this person is.
What do you think are some of the skills necessary for a programmer or developer getting into this industry?
One of the big things is what they call TDD, test-driven development. Being able to understand that, because it's very hard to tell yourself, I should go write the test that breaks my code and then go fix that. But in the long term, when your product gets huge, you get a lot of code, you're gonna break less areas of it.
What do you think are some typical mistakes that developers or programmers make?
That's an excellent question, because you're not going to know that you're making it. You've worked hard, you're good, you've written some code. I think what developers need to remember is that they have this responsibility to make decisions on behalf of their company. And if they don't know anything about their own customers, they're not going to be able to make good decisions on behalf of the business. Learn where the money comes from, who's paying for it all. it's a mistake not to spend some time learning to empathize with your customer, because you get to make big decisions for them.
Working in Ruby on Rails, you join a highly interactive community of developers, and the ones who benefit the most are the ones willing to share the inner workings of their builds, including the mistakes they've made along the way. And walking into a place like Engine Yard, the first thing they'll want to see is something you've built. So, build it! Search Dice.com for hundreds of openings in Ruby on Rails and add to the community that thinks working in Rails is the best job ever. Hey everyone, remember that our Best Interview Ever contest isn't over yet. Each week, head over to dice.com/contest, answer one of our interview questions, and you could win a Connect. And tech pros share those answers. The most popular answer each week wins.